Death is for the Dying Epitaph. This is a mini episode of the podcast, Life is for the Living. I'm your host, Rebecca Richmond, and with me, as always, is our producer, Marco. Hey, Marco.
Hello. Hi, everyone. How you doing?
I am doing all right. Got
Good.
a question for you, though.
Oh, gosh. Can I tell you how excited I am about this episode? Like okay, let's pull the curtain back a little bit. So for our audience members out there, we did this interview, what? April, May,
Something like that. It was
something
a
like
while.
that. I can't remember how long time ago. I have never been willing to like drop everything I do, like quit my job and go and work for somebody else after talking to Seth.
Yeah. You wanted to be
I
a funeral director.
I did want to be a funeral director. I was like, because everything he was talking about was just like, oh, that's really cool. I want to do that. I want to learn how to do that. Oh, that's another cool option. And let's talk about that. Like for me, and I think you said this at the very beginning, this was your favorite episode, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Seth
And
was great. And it's just also the topic that I find the most interesting.
me too. And I hope people, if you look, if you haven't listened to the episode, stop this, go back, listen to it. There is just so much good information in there that I feel like now I'm ready to I'm ready to die tomorrow, but I still have to pick how I want to do the funeral and stuff like that.
And that's the question
That's the
for
question.
me,
I predicted the
Marco.
question. Yes.
Yes. What do you want people to do with your body when you die?
Okay.
And I don't know why I said that in that weird voice, but I did.
We'll just go with it. We'll roll with it,
Yeah,
man. I'm good.
yeah, yeah.
So, because it's an exciting topic.
It is.
I, when he was going through all the different options, so let's talk about the options first.
Yes.
We've got, uh, and he made a great joke. And I don't know if we included it in the episode, but when he was talking about, he's like, when you go to a regular funeral home, you basically have two options, smoking and not smoking. And I thought that was great. That was a great joke. So sorry, Seth, I stole your joke. Um, but the other options are aquamation or what was the alternative name for it? I can't remember.
Water cremation?
Water cremation, yeah. Um, and then there's terramation,
Yes, otherwise known
which
as human composting.
human composting,
You can
exactly.
see why they maybe went with terramation.
It makes sense. It's aquamation, terramation, two sides of the same coin. Um, then there was private burials in, people's kind of backyards almost. And then there were pyres, like funeral pyres. So if you wanted to die, uh, Darth Vader style, you could do that. It's great.
And just to loop back for those who might not be as deep in the funeral weeds as we are, smoking would be cremation,
Yes.
where your body is burned at a very high temperature, and then your remaining bones are ground down into quote unquote ash,
Hmm.
which is what the cremains are that you receive after cremation. Or non-smoking usually refers to the traditional embalming, draining all of your liquids, replacing
Hmm.
it with formaldehyde and ethanol and other things. And then so making you look alive for a little
Yes.
bit longer
For the viewing.
for the viewing. And then being buried in a casket.
Yeah, exactly. And all the different options that come with that. It could be
Yeah.
cardboard box, pine box, the Cadillac of caskets, like with teak wood and everything, and velvet lining and all that.
You can get like ones that are like lead lined. Um,
Yeah.
it's a whole interesting, but it's like it's selling this idea that your body's not going to decompose like if you put enough chemicals in it and you put it in lead lined casket or a bronze lined casket, you're not going to decompose. This is a lie. Your body is going to decompose.
Yes,
Like
exactly.
once you're dead, you will decompose. You may
Exactly.
not decompose as quickly, but you will decompose.
Exactly.
You will be worm food one way or the other.
So, which one do I want? Now,
Yeah.
as he was explaining it to me, I went through a process. I went
Yeah.
through a process. So when he was describing aquamation, water cremation, and all the advantages that come with it,
Yes.
same amount of time as a regular flame cremation,
Yes.
which blew my mind. I did not know that was possible.
It's a fast dissolving of the body.
Yeah, exactly. On top of that, you are basically broken down to essential elements. Your DNA, gone. Any pathogens that you had, maybe you had cancer when you died, gone. Everything gone. And all that's left is basically essentially fertilized water, right? And I think you mentioned it in the episode, like sometimes a lot of this, well, actually a lot of times the water gets put down the drain and, you know, people are given maybe a small vial of your
Well, you
remains.
still have the bones. It's the
That's
same.
right.
You still have the bones, so you still have the cremains.
Right, exactly. And the
But
fact
the
that,
actual any nutrients just get wasted.
right,
That's
right.
me.
And so with, you know, you get the urn, which is great, and the remains, and then any devices that you had, maybe you had a hip replacement, maybe you had like a pacemaker or something like that, all that gets recycled. And I thought to myself, holy cow, why are people not doing this? Like it
There's
just
no
seems
romance in it.
I never thought of that. No romance in it?
Well, I mean, you are just being dissolved.
But
There's a little bit of romance in like being burned. There's a little bit of romance in being buried, but
oh,
like
okay.
I think that the problem with aquamation is that it is very utilitarian.
Maybe that's what I am. Maybe I'm a utilitarian kind of guy.
I respect that. I'm all for utilitarianism.
Yeah.
Like
Well, it was the other thing that you
do
mentioned
the
in
thing
the
that
episode as
actually,
well was the ick factor,
yeah,
right?
there's also Nick factor.
Right. Then people don't want to have that visual of like dissolving tissue, I
Hmm.
guess, which I can
Apparently
totally
burning tissue is better.
apparently.
Yeah.
So started off there.
Okay.
It's a very long and drawn out answer, but I'm getting to it. Then he talked about terramation, and he basically talked about the process that they go through specifically, and I believe probably a patented process. And from what he told me, or what he told us, I should say, is that the body's placed in a vessel called the chrysalis. And in that chrysalis, they put wood chips, alfalfa, and I
Hay,
can't remember what the third component was.
hay maybe or something. It was something. Yes.
It could be hay. I honestly can't remember. Straw, maybe.
Something
Yeah.
organic.
Yes, exactly. And then they put in a special tea that he calls that
Yes.
contains all the enzymes and microbes that need to break down your body and all the other components that are in the chrysalis. And effectively, you get put in, you get converted into compost.
Yes.
And I really like that idea. I really like that idea. And if I had the option, I would probably do that. The problem is that the amount of compost
Is
that
a
gets
lot.
produced
It is a
is
lot of compost.
for anyone that does landscaping work, like I know I've done it before in the past. If you go to like a landscape yard and you're looking to like get like a scoop of wood chips or gravel or whatever, effectively when this whole process is done, the amount of compost is big enough to fill one bucket of those front loaders. And like that's 200 pounds or something like that. I'm like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So where does it go? Like, I don't want to burden my family with 200 pounds of compost.
Compost for that. I don't know what they do in natural funeral. I do know so the place here, whose name I don't remember, but the place in Seattle, what they do is they'll give like a little bit to the family, and then the rest of it will go to a forest that has been cut down, degraded, and so like you get to, re-nourish the wildlands.
See, if that was the case, I'd be cool with that. Because basically, I want to be compost for a tree. Like if I, you know, maybe you give a bag to my relatives or whoever, my family or whoever, they plant a tree, they use my compost to plant a tree in my honor. Great. And then the rest of it goes to a forest. Yo, I'm down for that. I'm down for that. Uh, so yeah, that's probably my answer.
I've been in a very similar journey. I think though, for me, romanticism maybe is winning out a little bit
Oh,
over utilitarianism.
mm,
Um, I would want a natural burial. So no, so I'm gonna rank these
okay.
because there's complications and things might be kind of hard. But I my dream is that I will make my own coffin. And so coffin being like the human shaped box,
Yeah.
my own pine coffin from like
Okay.
recycled wood.
Okay.
And I decorate it, carve it, paint it, whatever I want to do. So that it is my coffin that I have designed.
I like it.
And then have a natural burial, so no embalming, no preservatives. Just put me in the box, and put me in the forest. Dig a hole in the forest and put me there.
No headstone?
Unnecessary, I feel,
Okay.
unless somebody is so moved. But for my purposes, I don't care.
What I appreciate is the fact that you are taking agency in designing, crafting your own coffin and making it yours. Like you are speaking my language. Like that is I mean, I do that in my free time,
Hmm.
building Christmas trees out of recycled materials, but yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Next thing we know, you are going to be building coffins.
That could be a
And
new side hustle.
unlike me, you are actually going to have the talents to do it. Like I have to learn how to build things before I can build my own
I
coffin.
could show you. I
Yeah, I
could
know.
show you how to do
I'm
it.
going to be relying on you. I'm going to be relying on you.
Okay. I mean, just,
I mean, I
pick.
can't imagine coffins are that complicated, in the actual building of them. But I'm
So
sure there's some math involved because there are weird angles.
I have experience in this. I have actually built a coffin. So this was years ago, like when I was single and living with a bunch of guys in a house. We had a house party during Halloween, and we were trying to decorate and make it look as great as possible. There was some leftover plywood in the garage of the house that we were renting, and I had like basic rudimentary tools, but I was able to fashion a coffin that we put on our kitchen table, lined it with like I don't know if it was purple velvet or like black velvet, and that's where we put all like the candy bowls. So people would, kind of walk around, socialize, grab some candy out of the coffin. So I already got the angles down. I
Yeah,
know how to build one.
excellent. Yeah, and I'm actually kind of thinking of building. As I said, not going to be that complicated, but I almost thinking so I watched this episode. God, I'm gonna mess up all the names. I'll try to remember to put them in the description, but no guarantees. Um, but there was a documentary that Marion Margolis did. She's Professor Sprouts from Harry Potter. Um, and if you have not watched her on Graham Norton, she's a delight, a filthy delight. But she did a documentary about sort of exploring death because she's getting older and she's um having to face the fact that it's not that far off for her. But one of the things she did is they had basically IKEA caskets where there's this thing where you can they'll do workshops and you build your own little casket and
That's awesome.
then you do some decoration on it. And I liked it, but I didn't like the quality of the casket. It's a little bit too much it's all assemble, just use staple gun kind of things. As I said, for
Still,
the IKEA version of a casket. But I was like, I want to do that, but I want to build a real coffin, and I do want it to be a coffin and not a casket. Um, and then spend years doing fine decoration on it.
right.
Um, so that it's a contemplation of my death and all of that. Anyway,
It'd
that's the
be,
top one.
wait, hold
It's
on.
We're getting
It
slightly off
would
topic.
it would I know, but it would be great if like that was like in your living room and that was like a
Just
conversation piece
the
to be like,
conversation
what is
piece.
this? Well, this is a work in progress. I'm, slowly building my coffin.
As you
What
do.
as you
As
do,
you do.
like regularly. So that's number one. That's number
Yeah,
one.
that's the top choice.
What's number two?
Number two would probably be human composting. And the main thing with that is it is definitely more expensive. So one of the things there's sorry, I'm all over the place today, but
That's okay.
one of the things to take into consideration when you're talking about this is cost.
Yeah.
And there's a lovely video by, the Queen Death, the Death Queen herself, Caitlin Doughty, in on our channel of Ask a Mortician, where she talks about like costs.
Hmm.
And I was like, this is so super helpful because a lot of funeral homes will hide the costs.
Yes.
So I'm just gonna share what I've learned about cost really quickly. So the place that I've looked at, which is the place in Seattle, it's about $5,000 to do human composting, or terramation, whatever you want to call it. So it's not the
It's not
cheapest.
terrible.
It's not terrible, but at least right now in 2024, you should be able to find a place that will, if you are cannot afford $5,000, and $5,000 is going to be very easy if you go to a traditional funeral home.
Oh yeah. They'll
Yeah.
charge you that. It's easy, like
Yeah.
with all the services that they provide in terms of like viewings and, caskets and everything else,
Yeah.
preparation. Yeah.
They gave my dad there was my dad was like considering different funeral homes for my mom, and had I hadn't made him watch this video and I should have. But he like went to this place, this funeral home, and like I was looking at the breakdown of costs, and it was like you were paying their people to attend the funeral or like a viewing. And
Yeah.
no. But there are funeral homes that where you can get, and certainly there's one here that I've identified. You shouldn't be paying like more than 1,000 for cremation
Right. Yes.
or an aquamation. So you want to like look for places that are upfront about the costs. There is a law, I believe now, that they do have to put costs, but they'll like it's going to be a lot of buried stuff
Right.
in a lot of funeral homes. So like you want to be like a place that like is pretty open on what they're doing is
Right.
something to really pay mind for or pay attention to when you're looking, because they do make it, well, of course you're going to spend out all the money for your loved one, but you know what, you people still got to live, and $5,000 is not a small amount of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you it doesn't mean that you didn't love the loved one or the person who's died if you're not going bankrupt to give them a funeral.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Plus, it's also what you want, right?
Yeah.
If you know exactly what you want, you can save up for it and then, you know, have it
Yeah.
in hand. It's almost like buying a car. Since you know what car you want to get, you got to save up for it. And, once you have that money in place, like again, you're not burdening your family afterwards. Like you're just, hey, this is what's going to get done, already paid for. Here's the money, ready to go. And
Yep.
you have the service that you wanted.
Yeah. I mean that's one of it's important to talk about it now because you that is one of the things that really gets me is that like the funeral, you have to make, if you have not spoken about it before, then your family just has to figure it out when they're dealing with all of this other crap that they're having to figure out
Yeah.
and processing the loss and all of that.
And they're not
And
going to look through the fine print to see like all the hidden charges that might be there potentially.
yeah. And one of the tips that I got from Caitlin was like there is no harm in shopping around for funeral homes. And what you do is you call them.
Mm,
Don't go to a funeral home until you've called several and asked them what their bare bones cremation costs or whatever it is that you want costs.
right.
So that you don't get kind of hooked into a place and then feel like you can't back out.
So is the reasoning for that because when you step into a funeral home, like you start to become attached to the person that is trying to sell it to you, or what's the
I
logic
mean,
behind it?
I think it's just well, first of all, it's time and money, like it's time, right? If you
Obviously,
just
yeah.
call people, it's faster. But it's also like there is a little bit like a level of guilt of like, oh, you're cheaping out, like
Oh,
like I don't know about you, but I'd have a little bit of a hard time going like, oh, you know what? That is too much for a casket. I'm gonna go shop somewhere else.
right, right.
Like I don't know if I would have the strength to do that.
No one really knows how to haggle over death.
Yeah. So I would much, like at least for me, if people want to haggle with funeral directors to their faces,
Hey,
that
they
is
can.
certainly an option. But just like don't go to the funeral home. Don't like go to the funeral home just because it's nearby or um convenient or because that's where we buried, that's who buried Uncle Fred or whatever.
Right,
Like shop,
right.
make sure you're getting your money's worth.
All right. So, is there a bronze medalist on this podium
I think it
of
would be a
death's
tie.
virtues?
Well, I guess it would be aquamation.
Okay.
Um, aquamation is better for the environment. Particularly if you could like take the water and then like fertilize it, use
Hmm.
it as fertilizer, that would be ideal. But at least it's not polluting the environment.
Right.
Uh, last or after that, cremation. Um, I mean, it's relatively cheap. It's available everywhere. You don't have to like work to get it. Particularly if you're not like in Seattle, obviously we have a lot of options.
Yes.
Other
Yes.
places you might be back to smoking and non-smoking. So if your only options is, if my only options when I die are smoking and non-smoking, I will be going with smoking.
Yes.
The only time in my life I will be doing that. Um, yeah, but embalming, I do
Yeah.
not.
You made
No.
that pretty clear during the episode that is not something you
Yeah.
want. You have very strong opinions on that.
Yeah, but also, I mean, it's like it's terrible for the environment. You're just
Yeah.
putting a bunch of awful killing chemicals into the environment. For what purpose? You
Yeah.
know, um, just bury me raw.
I think, okay, so if I had to put my gold, silver, and bronze, um, gold would probably be Terramation more than likely. Because yeah, that's probably the best one. Um, bronze medalist, sorry, silver medalist will be something different, something that I actually saw when Gata was buried.
Sure.
So because she got buried doing through a Muslim funeral service, the way that her burial happened was that she was effectively wrapped in a shroud and buried in the ground with the shroud. Now, part of the ritual, I believe, is like part of her body has to touch the ground itself. And
Okay.
sometimes that's done by simply rubbing the dirt on her face or different, arms, neck, whatever. And usually it's done by, the eldest uh, male in the family. Um, and so I thought that was interesting because I'm like, a shroud, very, very, very ancient, I guess.
Yeah.
And, just like you're going to decompose, but, you kind of wrapped up and you're not necessarily using any, you know, expensive wood for a casket. Like if I was to get buried naturally, I would, a cardboard box would be fine for me. Like
Yeah.
it,
I just like
like
the art of having a coffin.
yeah, and you know what? Maybe I might have to rethink my
But I
my
am
silver medalist.
recycled wood. No new wood for
Right,
me.
exactly. So a shroud, I think, would be cool.
Yeah.
What I learned though is that at least here in California, that you cannot be buried just in a shroud. Like what they did was they put a it almost looked like a coffin lid, and it was made out of concrete, and they lay that on top or just above the shrouded body. And I think it has to do with leaching. I think it has to do with like maybe preventing the body from decomposing too fast or something like that. I don't know, but there's a law, at least here in California, that you have to put like this concrete cap over effectively this body that's in the ground. That's number two.
Okay.
Number three, if I had the money, if I had the money, I want to go Viking style. I
Okay.
want an outdoor funeral pyre. I
Okay.
think that would be awesome because, like you said, little romanticism in it. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
Star Wars, very, very a movie that's near and dear to my heart, and seeing Darth Vader die at in the Return of the Jedi at the very end, Return of the Jedi. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. But I would like to have. I actually have some archer friends and have like a flaming arrow and like have
Hmm.
them shoot it from like 120 yards, 200 yards down, and just kind of. And whether I'm in a boat or not, I'm
Hmm.
okay. Or if it's on the ground, either way. Or, if people just want to take a torch, or everyone takes a torch. Everyone
Yeah.
has a torch and everyone lights the fire. Everyone that I care about lights the fire. Actually, you know what? That's what I want to do. I want people to have torches and basically light me on fire.
So first of all, you should definitely read Caitlin Doty's book, From Here to Eternity. And that's where she discusses like all different ways that people dispose of bodies.
Hmm.
Um, and so she goes into like she talks about how they do it in Colorado, I think with natural burial. So
Okay.
it's one of the burials, one of the pure pyre cremations there. Um, but so question for you, coming from that book, one of the options is what's called a sky death.
What
A
is
sky
that?
death is a Tibetan ritual. I think it's Tibetan. You're gonna have to like people are gonna have to fact check
I,
me.
I,
I'm just
I'm going to look this up while you're talking.
going
Go ahead.
going hot here.
Keep talking.
Um,
I'm going to do this. Sky death.
yeah, sky burial.
Sky
Um,
burial.
so in that case, your body gets chopped up and you are left out for the vultures. There's or maybe it's Nepal. Nepal. It's definitely a place with mountains.
Yeah, it is a funeral practice in which the human corpse is placed on a mountaintop to decompose while exposed to the elements or to be eaten by scavenging animals,
Mhm.
especially birds like vultures or corvids. They are endemic to Tibet, Inner Mongolia, Nepal, Bhutan, some parts of India. But yeah,
Would you do it? That face says no.
I'd have to warm up to the idea. I let me think. Because initially when you said sky burial, I was thinking to
It
myself
sounds
that
romantic, doesn't it?
no, it doesn't. What I was thinking was that like you would drop my body from like a helicopter or like a plane and like it would just impact into the ground and then wherever it landed, like wherever he lands, there shall he be buried. And then just put
Put some
dirt
dirt
on
on you.
top of me.
Yeah.
Yes. That's what I thought you were gonna say.
Nope,
Um, yeah, no, no, no,
not for you.
not for me. Not for me. You got any more?
Well, actually, a slightly different question. Would you want to handle, because Seth talked about like actually the importance of like handling the dead, and physically touching the dead. Would you wash and dress or otherwise want to interact with your loved ones' dead bodies?
You know
If it is
what? If it's possible, right now I say I probably would. When the moment came, I would probably hesitate.
there's a strong like taboo about it in our culture,
Yeah, yeah. I
which is it's weird because for centuries, we've obviously been handling our own dead.
I think I would be okay with, um, let's say hypothetically, person I loved is in hospice and they pass away, and we have that time where, like has been talked about in previous episodes, like I can see that they're not breathing anymore. I can feel the heat leaving from their body. I can, you know, maybe anoint them with something, whether it's oils or water or whatever, you know, that kind of stuff I think I can do. Bathing them? I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's where I am kind of like,
Maybe
I mean,
give me a washcloth, I can do it. And just kind
yeah,
of like do a nice clean once over, but
yeah.
yeah, like
I
fast,
think
fast,
it's like
fast.
like I wouldn't. It depends on the person, right? Like I feel like if you were, and I'm sorry to bring this up to you because you are a parent, but if you're a parent whose child has died,
Yeah.
that's different than like washing the body of your parents.
Yes.
We have a different relationship.
Yes, because I did it for them for
Yeah.
many, many years.
Yeah.
And that would have a different meaning
Yeah.
because it would be for me taking care of them like I did when they were babies.
Yeah.
But for my parents,
It feels a little, for me,
it's
it feels like an invasion of privacy.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I agree. So yeah, I guess yeah, if it was my wife, it was my kids, yeah, I could probably do the bathing thing. My parents, well, you never know. Like there might be a time where they, while they're still living or while they need to be cared for, you would have to like
Yeah.
bathe
And
them.
that's what Brooks talked about in the last episode is that he bathed his mom, so of course he also bathed her body.
Yeah.
But I
What?
don't know that I could do it in life. I mean, I
No.
suppose like, if I had to, I could, but I don't. That is a boundary I'd prefer not to cross in
Yeah.
life. But I definitely would want to like experience the lifeless body because I think that does help
With the
with
grieving
the
process.
transition. Yeah. And with like really, really viscerally understanding death and their
Exactly.
death specifically.
That was awesome. I'm still revved up. I want to keep going, but I know we have to end this epitaph.
Probably should go on to the next one.
We'll go on to the next one.
All right.
You can end this one. How about that?
I will end this one. All right. Well, thank you so much for nerding out with me about body disposal methods. I should say what is it? Body dispensation methods? Not
Body disposition,
body
body.
disposition. That's it.
Yeah.
Not dispensation.
We're going to dispense them out to people like
Yes,
this.
we're punchy, Marco.
Oh God, it's getting too late.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you for the conversation, Marco.
You're welcome.
And you can join us at Life is for the L on Threads and Instagram. We're no longer on Twitter because F that guy. Um, or you could email us at lifeisforthelivingpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next time.
See you in the
Bye-bye.
next one. Bye, everybody.
Bye.